Whenever I compare a Casagrandes episode to a Loud House episode from Season 1, it's really obvious that whenever you look back on the earlier seasons of the Loud House, it may have bad episodes, but when it comes to episodes like For Balls About to Rock, it really shows that the Casagrandes really wants to capture the magic from those episodes, but at the same time, make them into their own identity. Which leads us to the Casagrandes episode that is similar to For Balls About to Rock, is Meal Ticket. Mainly at the fact that Lincoln and Clyde wants to go to a concert involving Smooch, while in Meal Ticket, Ryan along with Sid are going to a Yukon or 12 is Midnight concert. Really sums up a lot that some people didn't request me to do a video involving these two episodes. Just because I make the randomness ideas that don't fit together doesn't mean I can't come up with these. Let me tell you, I actually really enjoy these two episodes, mainly the fact that they're really good in their own way, but of course, one episode is superior over the other, so let's go talk about the plots of these two episodes. Just when Lincoln is about to head to the Smooch concert in the mall, his sister stops him and letting him know that he should prevent getting in any encounters with Luna, considering that she is so into concerts. And considering that this is one of the few episodes where Lincoln and Luna are in an episode together, I don't even know if it's a good thing considering of how Luna is portrayed in this episode, or a bad thing considering that people enjoyed the relationship of Lincoln and Luna. If you ask me, I think it's honestly a bad thing considering that this is the only episode where we got Lincoln and Luna, and then afterwards only brief moments and not another episode centering around the two. When it comes to Meal Ticket, Ryan and Sid were unable to get tickets for the 12 is Midnight concert because Sergio knocked out the Wi-Fi, which results them into a predicament where they need to find a solution to get into the Yoon Kwan or 12 is Midnight concert. I know I keep mentioning Lu Kwan, but at the same time, it really feels like that these two characters really care about Liu Kwan, considering that it's obvious that Sid has a crush on Liu Kwan, even if it wasn't obvious after watching the Operation Pop Star, and the fact that they completely gave Liu Kwan amnesia. Their alternative plan is to take Casey's father's truck in order to sell food at the concert while also trying to watch the concert themselves. I'm gonna be really honest with you, the ideas that they did involving Sid and Ryan's situation really makes it a lot more complicated compared to Lincoln and Clyde's situation. While Lincoln and Clyde dealt with the tickets being sold out, all the while Lincoln pushed Luna out of the way after she embarrassed him, Ryan and Sid had to deal with selling food on the pier, which is where the concert of 12 is Midnight is located. And if I'm gonna be honest, the fact that they had to deal with getting close to 12 is Midnight, all the while selling food, they have a lot of priorities in Meal Ticket. While Lincoln and Clyde in For Balls About to Rock only had one, and that's gain tickets for the Smooch concert. Like, the fact that Meal Ticket really tries so hard to make the odds that Ryan and Sid are dealing with a lot more complicated, it made me appreciate Meal Ticket a lot more. Now granted, I can understand that For Balls About to Rock was part of the first season of The Loud House, and we didn't know much about Ryan during that season. But still, it was a lot more complicated for Ryan and Sid to get through so many obstacles in Meal Ticket. But let's get back to For Balls About to Rock. Since the main focus of Lincoln's perspective in the first season centering around him surviving while living with 10 sisters, the episode focusing on Luna being the prime example of that, I can instantly tell that they really wanted Luna to be a nuisance towards Lincoln, but not in the same way as the other sisters, because as far as I'm concerned, there are different types of being in the nuisance, and when it comes to Luna being a nuisance, it's just trying to line up Lincoln's experience on being part of a smooch consult. And when I mean being part of a smooch consult, she literally meant it at the end of this episode. Though at the same time, she went way too far. Like, I'm starting to convince that this is either one of the reasons on why we never got more Lincoln and Luna episodes in the future, but they could have done different techniques and ideals in order to make the relationship work out. Because if I'm gonna be honest, Lincoln's relationships centering around her sisters, mainly in the earlier seasons, like Luna, Luann, and Lenny, just to name a few, really felt like the least development. Like the only ones I can think that actually somewhat work out were Loie and maybe Lynn, but that's mainly the fact of how Lynn's relationship with Lincoln isn't really what people would expect upon watching this show for the first time. Granted, when it comes to the series as it progressed, that's a completely different story. Like, whenever I look at this episode, and especially when it comes to the moments that Chris Savino had presented involving Lincoln's relationship with his sisters, after No Such Luck, it really felt like it had an actual meaning. And granted, I understand that there were not a lot of centered, focused episodes involving two pairs of the Loud siblings as the series progressed, even if they may be awesome when it comes to Lola and Lana. I'm gonna be really honest with you that the fact that there were a lack of relationships involving Lincoln and Luna just goes to show that I think that after this episode just only gets slightly better because it's pretty much one of the rare occasions where we ever get to see Lincoln and Luna develop as a bond. I mean, granted, the bond is completely different, but at the same time, the relationship is still considered a bond in their own way. And knowing forward that Lincoln learned that Luna just isn't as a nuisance compared to his other sisters, especially since that his sisters have expressed how much Luna just ruined their concert experience. You can tell that the first season involving the Loud siblings, even if they had development in the first season, were literally their humble beginnings, but the same thing goes to Lincoln when it comes to humble beginnings. So, whatever I think about Luna in this episode, especially the flashback that she expressed towards Lincoln, just goes to show that she's just basically dealing with humble beginnings, but that's basically saying something, well, you're a cartoon as part of Nickelodeon, and it's not part of Disney or Cartoon Network, which is really saying something, because when it comes to humble beginnings involving Nicktoons, it really feels like that they need to start somewhere in order to form their own identity. And when it comes to this show, it really increased its identity a lot more. And then whenever we see episodes involving the Loud siblings, like Luna in this, you can really tell that they really had a lot of fun doing this episode, especially house music afterwards. Which is really saying something, because the only thing that's missing in the later seasons is the fact that even if the characters, despite the derailment, still act as they were in the earlier seasons, they didn't have the charm of this type of development. Which really sums up onto why that in the later seasons, it's difficult to take them seriously, since that they lack of these types of developments involving the Loud siblings. And while I understand that even in the Casagrandes' 3 seasons there was some kind of development, and sometimes even in this episode there was not much of development aside from one of Ryan's friends, it really feels like that they couldn't be up at the top of what they did in Football's About to Rock, so they decided to have fun with it by having Ryan instead dealing with going to 12 is Midnight concert on the Peel because it's a lot more different compared to going to the concert where you need to get tickets from the mall. And since that Casey is mostly the main character in this, since that he's willing to allow Ryan and Sid to help out with his dad's truck, I have to admit, this is pretty much the prime examples onto why I actually enjoy the side characters in the Casagrandes. And even if they don't do much, I have to admit that using them in these types of episodes really worked. And speaking of the minor characters in this, Rizuku, who's the sumo wrestler or sumo fighter in this show, I have less opinions on him. Not to say that he's bland, but considering that this show has a lot of representation of people from different places and countries, it really feels like that they want to use him in this episode for the advantage of Ryan and Sid have to save Cassie's father's truck from getting destroyed, or basically running over the people in the crowd. You know, as much as Lincoln and Clyde getting tickets from an undercover markup was really questionable, I have to admit that what Ryan and Sid nearly caused in meal ticket, I can guarantee that they probably want to see us see what Ryan and Sid did much more worse but accidental, while what Lincoln and Clyde did in Football's About to Walk, pretty much slightly worse. I mean, in all honesty, when I say slightly worse, I mean what Meal Ticket did is much more complicated than this. Though then again, if Rizuko was ever in the line similar to Lincoln and Clyde, I can guarantee you that he would be very menacing in front of so many people in Royal Woods. I mean, granted, he's a nice guy, but let me tell you, I'm pretty sure that if he got those tickets from the undercover markup, then I don't even know what the undercover markup would think of him once he lifts something that is very heavy in front of him. Seriously, even if I do not like all the characters, there are so many potential ideas for episodes that even if the Casagrandes may have went into season a lot, I would still take the Casagrandes over the Willie Loudhouse any day, no matter what. Now let's get into the endings of these two episodes. Now, I've gone this long to talk about Lincoln in this, and considering that his goal in this is simple to the point that once he got rid of Luna in the middle of the episode, he had to handle the consequences on his own, all the while nearly getting into mall jail along with Luna due to Bobby noticing Luna, which honestly raises more questions, but I'm not gonna ramble for too long. I really felt like that Lincoln's character in this really sums up that he's getting used to so many things involving his sisters, and judging of how he is portrayed as the series progressed, it's difficult to take his relationship seriously, but I have to admit, his encounter and his feelings towards Luna in this really is somewhat justifiable, but as once we got into him being regretful for nearly calling her out on how she embarrassed him, mainly shows of how the other siblings didn't do what Lincoln did in this episode, considering that their experiences are a lot more similar, knowing full well that Luna just is too into music that they just can't be able to think of one type of music that Luna hates. Granted, there may be some kind of types of music that Luna doesn't like, but as far as I'm concerned, Luna is basically into any other music that if you at least try to give her a terrible song, she would somewhat enjoy it, but I don't even think that would ever work in the live action universe, which is the Willie Loudhouse, since that they took Luna's character a little serious when it comes to one of the episodes centering around her. The ending of Football's About to Walk is a really good ending, and it's really a shame that we never got more episodes centering around Lincoln and Luna. Then again, there's a chance that it could happen if the show gets more seasons despite the season watch problems, but in all honesty, I feel like it wouldn't kill them to make one more episode involving Lincoln and Luna together. As for the ending of Meal Ticket, well, Ryan and Sid apologized to Casey's father on the fact that they were too focused on the K-pop concert, all the while not helping out on the truck. I'm going to be really honest with you. Judging of how that K-pop is becoming much more popular while Smooch is basically a parody of a band that happened in the 80s or 90s or 2000s or something like that, it really feels like that the modern times of this episode has really aged a lot more, knowing full well that Ryan and Sid are really into K-pop music, while Lincoln and Clyde aren't diehard fans. Like, I understand that Smooch is supposed to be a parody of Kiss, but I'm not really a fan of Kiss in real life, nor the type of music that they do. And when it comes to 12 is Midnight, I can instantly understand onto why fangirls are so obsessed with it, and while I do not enjoy all songs involving K-pop, I think that the 12 is Midnight fangoing is a lot more intense compared to Smooch diehard fans. And the reason onto why Ryan and Sid got off the hook easily is because after Yukon ate the sandwich, all it did is just gave Alberto, who is Casey's father, more promotion for his truck and his business. You know, when they glorify something, it's mostly a bad thing, but I have to admit, they took glorified a lot more legitimately, but also done for the right reasons, which I don't even think it's really possible to pull off. Alberto's probably gonna have the best future once he meets Yukon himself, since that he wants to know who made this sandwich. The dreams do really come true in Great Lake City, do they? With that being said, which episode is superior? Obviously, Football's About to Rock, but to give Meal Ticket credit, it at least tried to be its own thing, and in my opinion, the entertainment aspect from it saves it from the story elements that it took from Football's About to Rock. Like, the only thing that's somewhat interesting, if you think about it, if the characters were reversed, like Lincoln and Clyde in the predicament of what Ryan and Sid went through in Meal Ticket, and vice versa when it comes to Ryan and Sid in Football's About to Rock. Granted, it would probably be a lot more complicated for Lincoln and Clyde, although it would probably be a lot more simple for Ryan and Sid, but still, it's honestly a possibility of what would have happened if the roles were reversed. So with that, I'm giving Football's About to Rock a 9 out of 10, while Meal Ticket gets an 8 out of 10.